Hello, and welcome to another episode of Standing Stanley Tucci. I'm David.
And I'm Muerte. No, I'm Hannah.
Your death. My name is
Um,
Death. Don't you
my name
forget.
is Muerte.
Yes, we have Stanley Tucci finally breaking free of the restrictions of the Italian criminal stereotype to play a Hispanic criminal
Hispanic
stereotype.
criminal. Woo! That's right. We were talking about the classic 1993 film Undercover Blues. Everybody knows, everyone
Classic
remembers.
by absolutely no definition, starring Kathleen Turner and Dennis Quaid, two
The
actors
baby, I
who
guess.
are not exactly actors anymore, um, which is fine. I think like most recently, Kathleen Turner had like a guest voice on Rick and Morty, which is funny, but
Oh, yeah.
uh, we stand, don't we stand Kathleen Turner?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Kathleen Turner is our whomst we also for this week. Getting it out of the way early because boy howdy is this movie weird.
Yeah. I mean it's not that weird like in premise. It's just like, hey, it's another like a married couple are former spies. They're trying to be on vacation, but then they get roped into a spy thing.
It's just like so much happens and yet nothing happens, you
Well,
know?
no, it's just nothing happens. I don't think anything like so much like it's just a series of like Looney Tunes style like action scenes where Dennis
Yeah.
Quaid is like Bugs Bunny going like, "Hey, I'm just trying to live my life. People keep trying to kill me. Whatever. I'm just
I
rolls off my back. I don't care." So there's just like no like structure or arc to the story. It's just a series of set
events.
pieces.
Yeah. Um yeah, it's so bizarre. I think you likening Dennis Quaid's character to Bugs Bunny is entirely accurate.
But it's
Uh
also overly praising the performance, which is just, you know, it doesn't have any of the
it's
subtleties of a Bugs Bunny. Let's say
it's a
that.
little psychotic though. It's a little like American Psycho, or like he's just constantly smiling, and it's that very charming Dennis Quaid smile,
Right.
but he's like smiling as he's like holding a baby in one arm and like shanking a guy with his other hand, and it's
Yes, he
like,
plays
ah!
former spy or spy on vacation, maybe, Jeff Blue, who's there with his wife, Jane Blue, and their
Mhm.
newborn, who like doesn't quite have a name yet. Like they're kind of testing out some names, I guess.
Yeah.
It's part of a subplot which will eventually lead to them naming the child after Jane as a reward for doing good espionage and CIA work. um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think like the best way to describe this movie is just like, you know, if he's Bugs Bunny, then like Stan Tucci is Elmer Fudd,
Yeah.
who's just comically like crashing into his spy um,
Shenanigans.
shenanigans because he is a vengeful mugger,
Yeah.
of which I'm sure there are many in New Orleans,
Oh yeah.
where the film is set.
It's it's set in New Orleans. I don't know why. They do nothing with the setting other than
Tax
like
breaks, man. I don't know. Tax
I
breaks must have
guess.
been really big in '93 because there were other movies set in in New Orleans.
It's just New Orleans. They talk about like gumbo and they play some trumpets occasionally, but and there's some horrible cops with just like awful fake like New Orleans drawls
Yeah,
that are
it's just this fake Cajun accent and done really high pitched for comedy,
and
done
like
by
lispy. It's Larry Miller, that's his name.
right, yeah, Larry Miller, who he had like, you know, some notable parts on like I think he was on Seinfeld once, and I don't know. I don't know exactly what he's known for most, but he just has like a lot of these like TV roles, and then I guess this really high pitched Cajun role.
Uh he's in The Nutty Professor too. Oh, he's in 10 Things I Hate About You. And the Princess Diaries. He's the that's who he is. That's how we know him. He's the hairdresser in the Princess Diaries.
Well, I know him as the doorman that Jerry gets into a tiff with on Seinfeld, but
Okay, okay.
that's that's my sphere of knowledge. Very limited, but yeah, so he sucks. I can't stand it when he's on screen. Anything else with story? Like, is there anything to say about the story here?
So like the spies, it's very like post Cold War,
Right.
where
She's from
this
like there's a villain who's from a like fallen Czechoslovakia who's
is it
trying to get her
Czechoslovakia
hands
or
on like thermonuclear weapons of some kind that are in a briefcase.
yeah, instead of like C2, it's C22.
Right. But like most poorly written spy screenplays, like as soon as she finds out that spies are after her, like the whole plot of like getting the weapons is sort of put on the back burner in favor
Yeah,
of just like sending goons to go kill these like spies because they're too
spies.
dangerous to be left alone.
Right.
Um, and surprisingly, Tucci is not one of those goons. He's an unrelated mugger who tries to mug Jeff Blue in the first scene.
Yeah.
And
The
then
movie practically opens with Tucci.
right.
He's right in there. And I will say, he gets fourth opening credits like
Sure, yeah,
billing.
he's on the back cover of the
Yeah.
DVD. Which why is
Like,
there a DVD of this? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. There was an interview that I think both of us watched where the woman interviewing him is like, "So this will be great for your career, right?" And he's like, "Well, I don't hold my
I
breath,
think
but
it
I
may
hope."
have been Hannah. We don't know.
I
Like
think
after
it might
this,
have
things
been
get better.
too. I really think it might have, as like terrible as this movie is. He
Yeah,
was
he
in a movie with Kathleen Turner and Dennis Quaid, who were big stars of the 90s. So like,
right.
getting
And yeah, he's the
getting that
comic
screen
foil.
time.
He's the big
Yeah.
comic relief. He has more screen time than I think any other character besides the main two and the cop
Mhm.
who's tagging along with them.
Yes.
Uh but yeah, so basically he tries to mug Dennis Quaid in the first scene, and Dennis Quaid has his baby with him, but he beats Tucci up with a stroller, even though Tucci's being very dramatic and saying, I am Muerte, I am death. And he's like, okay, Morty. I
Yeah.
don't speak Spanish. um,
Yeah. We might
Whatever.
have to, I know this is a Stan podcast, but we may have to cancel the Tooch for this
No,
role.
there's no way we're
It's
canceling
not
him.
great.
Yes, this is a clear example of they wrote a really racist character named Huerte, and then they offered it to Antonio Banderas, and he said, no, this is too racist. And then
And
Tucci said, I'll do the voice.
right,
But it's
it's
for his career.
it's not a horrible accent, but it's not great,
No, it's bad. I mean, it
It's
doesn't sound anything like a real person.
Hispanic.
It's totally
Yeah,
cartoony. But that's what everybody else is doing. He's matching tones. That's what
I
he does
guess.
as an actor. I'm
Yeah.
reminded of Giorgio from In the Soup, or
Mm,
Gregoire. I called him Giorgio again.
Gregoire.
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 The bad French accent, which
Richmond.
complements the other over the top characters in that. In
No,
this,
I loved that French accent. I thought that was great.
oh, it was beautiful, but I'm sure that anyone who actually is from France would be like, "Eh." um, but Tucci doing Mexican, it's a lot of, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not really picking a specific like region that he would be from, kind of mixing like cholo and mobster and like New York
Yeah.
and LA, kind of different different sounds together.
Yeah.
But I
It's
mean, it's funny. He does a lot of high pitched screaming, which we all recognize from Beethoven.
yes, so much high-pitched screaming in this for sure. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, I would say it's In the Soup meets Beethoven for Tucci.
We do need to talk about Tucci's arms and legs in this movie because we get
Right.
to
There's
see a
a
lot of it.
scene where he's trying to kill Dennis Quaid again as revenge for getting beat up once in the first scene in the movie.
But David, he gets mocked ruthlessly the whole
for
time.
being beat up by a guy with a baby. I mean, can you
Yeah.
imagine a man taking care of a child?
And
That
beating
must
up
be a
another
weakling,
man.
a weak man, and it would be foolish to get beat up by a weak-willed man who would push a stroller around.
Right.
But yeah, so he's trying to kill him, and so he gets pushed into an alligator enclosure
At the zoo, yeah.
at the zoo. And he's just running for his life. He climbs up a tree, and then Dennis Quaid convinces him to take off his shirt, jacket, and pants.
Yeah.
And just be there in his undies.
I think he leaves him his shirt, but definitely the jacket and the undies are gone. And for those of you watching our video podcast, which you can watch on YouTube, by the way, you can see those arms. They're just rippling with muscle.
But we've seen his arms in many films before. What we haven't seen is those thighs.
Those thighs.
His thigh game is sort of on point as well. So, you know,
they're
he
a little
doesn't
juicy.
skip leg day.
No, they're very juicy. There's some good, and he looks great wet. Honestly, like he really
he's
pulls
covered
off
in swamp goo.
Yeah, he pulls it off. Tucci makes it work. It's his metropolitan air, you know.
Right. So the other like running gag with Tucci is that every time he gets beat up, he spits out like 2 or 3 teeth, but you never actually see him missing teeth.
You only ever see him missing like the same like one tooth on his like right side.
He just keeps spitting out teeth and then screaming in a high-pitched and girly way. I don't know. It's kind of a delightful performance. It's certainly the saving grace of the film, if there can be one.
Yeah, the banter between, you know, the husband and wife, between Kathleen Turner and Dennis Quaid, is painful. It's not particularly funny.
You know, it's just like, it's that classic like bad it's just bad screenwriting like all around. It's just like, hey, we should do what we did in Budapest. Oh, do you mean Milan? Oh, no, I mean Budapest. And then they're like disagreeing about it, and it's like they're spies, but they bicker like a married couple.
There's just so much annoying bickering and like, oh, I can't believe my husband in it, and it's just like, I don't want to watch this. I don't like this in real life. Why would I enjoy it now?
Absolutely. And then there's also like some weird like throwaway lines that are like, I'm a comedy writer lines, where it's like, oh, you bought that doll for your 2-year-old? And it's like, no, I bought it for myself. It's a post-feminist doll. Yeah, she wears sneakers to work, but she doesn't like it. And it's like, all right, great. You wrote a comedy line about post-feminist doll whatever.
It's all just weird. It's so white bread. It's so like for that like liberal middle class.
Right. The only joke that I liked, and I liked it a heck of a lot, is that after the whole movie is over, the cop is like, what's your next mission? You're gonna go invade Cuba? And then they just get in a boat and say, which direction's Cuba? And then they go to take over Cuba.
It's very weird.
Which is true to, I guess, how the CIA operates in an ideal situation. If they had a super spy like Dennis Quaid, they surely would have invaded Cuba a second time by now. Or third time? Definitely second time. Right?
Definitely a second time at least. But yeah, that's pretty much Undercover Blues. It's pretty short. It wasn't a long movie, and there's not a lot.
There's just no substance. About. It's like, what do we talk about? Like this Russian Czechoslovakian villain played by Mrs. Dursley from the Harry Potter movies, you know, who just like drowns people in salt, I guess.
Yeah, it's very strange. She's also just like doing the worst accent I've ever heard here.
But everyone is. This the whole. Name one character who has an accent that doesn't sound completely awful.
I don't know. I mean, no one who does an accent is the answer.
Oh, Tom Arnold is in this. Talk about like an actor who doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Tucci just with all the most famous actors of the time, and none of whom still act.
Except for him.
Right. I mean, I guess
And like,
was Tom Arnold in that Real Rob show? Am I
I have
making
no
that up?
idea. I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
We don't like Tom Arnold on this show. If you're a Tom Arnold fan,
Make your own
go to
podcast.
your room.
Go to your
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Just make your own podcast. Did you notice any Tucciisms?
No, it's a lot of just the screaming. He's mugging a lot. Like I said, he's developing this sort of
Yes.
farcical, and he's doing more stunts than I think he's done in any film before this. In the
A ton. It's all his own stunts too.
right, it's like pratfalls, which are they're a type of stunt. They're sometimes, I guess, sort of seen as like easier than like the Tom Cruise cool stunts, but like
I
he
don't
got
know.
hurt. Like he was
Yeah.
battered and bruised after like a lot of days of working.
Yeah.
Um, Also, in the interview that we watched of him, where he was saying this is like the hardest shoot he's ever done, he talks about how he flew to France after visiting the Venice Film Festival, and he was staying at a hotel in France, and a guy tried to climb in the window, and he just pushed him out the window. So
Which is
Tucci,
some.
actual badass in real life.
There's our Tucci fun fact. We haven't had a Tucci fun fact in a while. I think that's. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
fun,
that's
but it's our
pretty
fun
fun.
fact.
I mean, that Tucci once pushed a man out of a second-story window, and then he fell to the ground and then ran away, because he was trying to
Yeah.
rob the place. And Tucci delivers it just like, oh yeah, and someone tried to break into my hotel. Oh, what did you do? I threw him out the window.
I love how, he starts this interview with this woman who, is just interviewing him for like the local NBC affiliate stations, as a promotion for Undercover Blues. But, she starts off being like, what's your last name again? Remind me. I don't really know you. And then she ends with being like, oh, I like you, you little charmer, your
Yeah,
feisty sense
he
of
charms her,
humor.
and
Yeah.
she asks like, what would people have seen you in, and
Yeah.
he says, Billy Bathgate,
He says the public eye.
The
He
Public
mentions the
Eye,
public
these are
eye.
his big recent prestige type movies. And then she's
Yeah.
like, oh, you were in Beethoven, weren't you? So you can see the way that like somebody might like try to think like, oh, I'm building my resume by being in
Right.
Billy Bathgate, this big movie with Dustin Hoffman. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
The kids movie. That's how people will know your name. And so
It's Beethoven.
it's happening for him,
Yep.
folks. He's becoming a real star, and possibly leaving his his first love, which was Broadway, for a good long while. So at the time that this film was released, he was performing on off Broadway in a production of another farce. Would you like to introduce that one?
Yeah. Let me pull that up.
Yeah.
It's the play Scapin.
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 Right.
Yeah, so it's based on an old, Moliere play that was first performed in 1671, but has had tons of variations and readaptations. It's of course very Italian, like him.
Yes. So this is a review by Mel
for our
Gusso.
Tucci news, I thought we could do a sort of throwback Tucci news to a review of his performance in the New York Times, published January 27th, 1993.
Yes,
would you like to start us off?
I love this. Thank you, Mel Gusso, for your reporting. I hope you're still
if you're
around.
still alive.
And still critiquing the theater.
Right.
The title is great. A maestro of mischief, updated malevolently.
Right. And I kind of want to start with this second paragraph where he talks about Tucci. So he says, as always, Scapin needs an agile scamp, in this case, Stanley Tucci, a quick change clown with a sly deadpan and a gift for mimicry. With more malevolence than is customary in the role, he puts the intricate plot in motion and then casually sidesteps into improvisation. Interrupting the play, he converses with theatergoers, scrambling through the seats and then settles back, waiting for the comedy to continue. But without him on stage, the show takes a long pause. So that's it's one of these meta sort of plays that
Yeah.
everyone loves.
Uh,
But this reviewer seems very enthusiastic about his performance.
yeah, I love that description of him as a quick change clown with a sly deadpan and a gift for mimicry.
Right.
Like
Also,
I
quick
think
change, like I said, when we were trying to figure out what quick change meant for the film Quick Change,
I was
starring
telling
Bill
you.
Murray, it is a theater term.
As director, Mr. Belgrader has gathered an energetic company of performers, but except for Ken Cheeseman as Scapine Straight Cheeseman? Is it Cheeseman? Chessman?
I
Cheeseman?
like Cheese Man.
That's how
Ken
I read it. It's
Cheese Man.
Ken Cheeseman as Scapine Straight Man. None of them can match Mr. Tucci for inventiveness, and a few of them have been pushed into caricature. I can never say that word.
Caricature.
Caricature. There we
Yeah,
go.
so Tucci in film is being forced into caricature by the directors, but when he's on the stage, he brings a reality to these pranksters and raconteurs.
At a recent performance, no matter how much Mr. Tucci cajoled the theatergoers, many of them were reluctant to join him in making fools of themselves on stage. Audience invasion is a risky business. Then, too, Rusty McGee's score is largely incidental, from gospel to gypsy, ooh, except for one droll touch. Whenever love is mentioned, an angelic choir warbles from some hidden rafter in the theater. Ooh.
So again, just everything sucks in this play except for Tucci.
Yeah, yeah. Next
Happily,
paragraph.
Mr. Tucci is an artful farceur,
Ooh.
meaning he's good at farce. Whether he is trying to draw a faster response from the slow-talking Mr. Cheeseman, making brazen promises to his lovesick master, or trying to decide what his next pratfall might be, at one point he imitates a global array of character types, interspersed with specific impersonations from life and cinema. So this is what in the interview that we saw, Tucci was talking about. The only thing harder to do than than Undercover Blues is this play, which is
In
also
terms of
pratfalls, but it's every single night.
right, and 2 times a day potentially with matinees. Naturally, the sex scene is the comic centerpiece. In that encounter, Scapine persuades his master's father to climb inside a sack and hide from potential attack. The sole attacker is, of course, Scapine, who covertly pummels the gullible old windbag. Mr. Tucci carries off the duplicity in his own subsequent deathbed scene with roguish aplomb. As the rascal Scapine, the actor is irrepressible. Scapine by Moliere. The
Yeah, and then it
end.
just goes on to list all of the credits. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great review. I'm sure this was pinned on his wall at the time somewhere.
I mean, there's a picture of the review, I believe, of Tucci in the role. Tell
Oh
me if
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wrong.
They would have taken a picture they would have taken several pictures, for the
Right.
report. But if the whole review is about Tucci in the lead role, you got to give it to him. But he did not win any awards for this performance. That wouldn't come until a few years later.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
foreshadowing. Um,
Ooh. Speaking of foreshadowing, we'll join you again next week with another tale set in the bayou in New Orleans. It's my terrible New Orleans accent.
right, and if
I'm
anyone's
so
offended by
sorry.
that, don't watch this movie.
Please don't. Please don't. It's
But
so bad.
if you enjoy seeing let's call it caricature, um
I mean, I think you will see Tucci as the true irrepressible scamp that he is in our next feature.
right. We're gonna
We'll
watch the
see you then.
Pelican Brief next time, so get ready for some Pelican Briefs. All right.
Antics.
See
Bye,
you
guys.
later.